you supply labor, right? So you're more willing, a lot of people like working holidays more than they like working the day before the holiday or something because time and a half. How would you like to work the night shift? Sucks, right? So they compensate you, well actually it's compensating differential, it's an economic term for things that people don't like. I'm filming a video for an economics class in case you're wondering. So they don't like they don't like working, it's like garbage men, you know, it's you touch garbage things, it's a less desirable job, so they pay well in order to get people to do it, right? So I think of some of the worst jobs, disgusting wise. Nurses get paid really well, but they do a lot of things that, you know, my brother's a nurse and he hates it, so things that he does not like to do. So even we're nurses' aid, so you know, very little training relative, and they have to do touch a lot of we'll just say undesirable things, right? So anyways, they get paid a little more. So in order to get people to supply their labor, they pay them more, right? So you're only willing to, at maybe $10 an hour, you're only willing to work 20 hours a week because you value your leisure time, right? But at $30 an hour, or say $15 an hour, you say, oh yeah, I'm much more willing to supply my labor. I will trade, you know, some of that leisure time because you're going to pay me more. I'll work more, right? So that's the supply, and so you can think of that as far as producers of here. I'm doing this for a farming community, so you've got like almond trees. Almond trees, the price of almonds went up, the price of a lot of other crops has kind of gone down. So a lot of people have torn up their whatever they had and they plant almonds and walnut trees because the price of those things has risen. And so typically what you'll get, because the price goes up, you get an increase overall in the amount, what do we say? Quantity supplied, right? Quantity supplied goes up. Now, that's a movement along the supply curve that comes from a change in the price, but you would have movements of the supply curve, like shifts. So let's say it shifted like this. Right now we've got floods in Texas, and what do they grow in Texas? Probably a lot of tumbleweed, things like that. You're not gonna be able to get your tumbleweeds.
They grow a lot of cows.
Cows. I hear the gator pit. You know, they might have, maybe they'll catch the gators and slaughter them, who knows, right? There's a gator farm that has 350 alligators, and they said that if the water goes up another foot, the alligators will be roaming the streets. So we've got flood waters, you get a big shift in the alligator population. Yeah. But you would have, this is what's called a supply shock. So what happens is you get a flood or something like that, and the wheat crop gets heavily damaged. Weather causes a lot of problems in farm. In the wintertime, you have a lot of oranges and citrus crop in California, and they'll get a freeze, like a cold snap. And what happens is, if you've ever seen Trading Places, anybody seen that movie? That's really what the end of the movie was about, the orange crop. So they fake a report that says orange crop had a deep freeze and it's going to be lower than normal. And you know, great movie, Eddie Murphy and Dan Aykroyd, funny movie. And it's pretty real, I mean, realistic about what's going on there. So anyways, you'll get a shift in the supply curve. And what happens is at this given price, you have less supply, right? And so typically, you bring these two curves together. You've got your demand curve and your supply curve, right? And movements along the curve by shifts in each curve, eventually they say will settle upon an equilibrium. Okay? Or E, right? And what that is at some magical price out there, the amount supplied is equal to the amount demanded. Right? So that is, what happens is you have people along here that would like to supply their crops, but they won't supply it at that price. Right? Or excuse me, up here. Right? So they demand a higher price before they're willing to supply. These people are willing to supply at a lower price. So this person right here, he's willing to supply his crop at, you know, some amount lower than the price. And we could look up here, this person is willing to demand, he's willing to buy oranges or apples or whatever at this price, but because the market has, a free market has allowed for that price to settle at what we call an equilibrium, where the maximum, it's called consumer and producer surplus, that is the difference between what he's willing to pay. All these people are willing to pay much higher prices, but the price is at its most efficient level, and all these people are willing to supply it at lower prices, but because the price has settled here, this person was willing to supply whatever it is at some price, actually gets a higher price, and this person was willing to pay, let's say for coffee, like $4 for a cup of coffee, but because the market has determined the actual price is $3, he gets what's called a consumer surplus of $1. So he's willing to pay $4, but the actual market price is $3, so he gets a consumer surplus of $1, right? That's a benefit, right? I mean, if you're willing to pay a lot and the market says, no, you don't have to, we'll give it to you for less, right? You're like, hey, wow, that's awesome, right? I save money, and what do you do with that money? You go spend it somewhere else, right? And you benefit from that. So that's how we benefit from the market, is this supply and demand gets to, theoretically, some point where all of the stuff on the market gets sold to people who want it at that price. And you get what's called the market clearing price. All the product gets sold. Now, all these people, yeah, they want the product, but they're not willing to pay that amount, right? So think about